Fabolous. Yeah. Yeah. Yo. I don't care what y'all do, how y'all do it, where y'all do it. Yeah. Just keep it gangsta. Look at them gangsters.
Alright, it's that time, world famous Radio 1's rap show. We are in New York City.
Fabs living the vida loca.
Actually, we're in New Jersey, right?
We're across the pond of New York.
Okay, so we're across the pond from New York, and wow, another in the studio. Now, this in the studio, on the way here, I was like, alright, cool, Ken, you got to host an important rap show with a guy who personifies hip-hop to me, you know?
Thank you.
So I tried my best to, like, I'm going to stay professional. That's why I stayed here. You notice how you was getting ready. I was like, let me stay here, let Fab do his thing, and I'm going to ask all the fanboy questions
Right.
when it's time to do that. Because honestly, bro, I could have done a whole 2-hour rap show just based on some of the incredible projects you put out and singles and collaborations. So it's going to be very hard to try and condense this in 20-30 minutes, but we're going to
make it happen.
Yeah, man. Well, in case you didn't know, East Coast legend, Brooklyn in the building, Fabolous on Radio 1's rap show with Kenny Allstar. I know that in itself is a soundbite to remember. So in the studio, Fab, is simply about, I want to know as a fan, the creative process. You know, you have put out iconic singles, smash hits, freestyles, and records in general in hip hop. But a lot of people might not remember where it started for Fab. Yeah. So, in layman's terms, for somebody who, let's say, is just getting into hip hop and wants to know about Fab and your come up, let's just take it back. When did you start rapping?
Well, as a kid, I started rapping before I was even. It was just a hobby to me. I was so fascinated about hip hop, same way kids are now when you discover it, and it's something that you really enjoy. It's a art form and of expression, but it's also like kind of a community as well. Like hip hop as a whole is a culture, it's a community. So it could bring you in, and I seen hip hop being played kind of like in the background of everything that was going on around me. So that's how when I seen the guys in my hood playing basketball, when I seen people playing cards, or anything that they were doing, hip hop and the culture was the background for it. You know what I'm saying? So that's how I got into it, and just loving the music at first, and then I think I started loving it so much that I wanted to contribute somehow. I wanted to, and I started just listening to my favorite artists and trying to figure out how they put together these raps. So I would write them out at first.
Their raps?
Yeah, their raps. Just completely write all the lyrics out, and then that helped me kind of formulate how to write a rap. And then from there, I just started using that same format that I was writing out their raps and wrote my own words. So it kind of would be the flow of those songs, but in my words. And then once I mastered that, then I moved on to not using their format and just using my own format. And I just gradually just got better and better at it, and still loving hip hop, still loving the music and the art form of it. And that's what my start was. That's way before I even thought about it as a career, or it was just a hobby at first. It was just something that I loved and like saw around me so much.
And that said rapper that you tried to emulate on a come up, his name was?
It was between Big Daddy Kane. It was between LL Cool J.
Wow.
Those were when I first discovered like hip hop in that era. But it was those guys too, because they was from the same walks of life that I was from. I'm from Brooklyn, so Big Daddy Kane and Biggie and Jay-Z and all of those guys, I felt like were connected to me because I could see they were from where I was from. Yeah. A lot of other things, like when you look at stuff on TV, or even as a little kid, I was like a fan of Michael Jackson. Michael Jackson seemed like a myth. It seemed like something that, you know what I mean? Like he was like a
larger than life.
Yeah, you know what I'm saying? So those guys seem more like, oh, he comes from my neighborhood.
You could see him down the way.
Right. Like, you know what I mean? Or I see the people that's around them, the imagery that they was giving off, it all was something that I was familiar to. So that's why they connected to me so much too. And then like, you know, there was other, of course, hip hop artists and songs that I like too, but those ones that were close to home is what really like connected for me.
Okay, let's talk about breakout projects. So, like, I'll tell you my first Fab album that I got. Like, I was 8, yeah, when I got this album, Ghetto Fabolous, yeah.
Ghetto Fabolous.
So, Ghetto Fabolous was like my introduction
Yeah.
to you. And like, you see why I say you brought a different flyness to the game, and like the way you were rhyming and your cadence at that time, it felt like so refreshing from a guy from across the pond to listen to. Because again, I don't remember what Ready to Die sounded like when it first dropped, right? Because I would have been 1.
Right.
But like when you're kind of coming up and you start to know what words mean a little bit more, and the way you used to like rhyme was just on another level. I'm like, no, Fab's and he's fly with it as well. And then when I see you in the videos, I'm like, okay, cool. Like Ghetto Fabolous for me was such an integral project. But I guess I want to ask you, yeah, what was like the most enjoyable song to make on that project? Because that was like a breakout album for you, right? Would you say?
Yeah, it let my build up into that album was special too, because it was started kind of like mixtape rooted. You know what I'm saying? So it was like an underground build up, and then by the time we dropped the project Ghetto Fabolous, it was like the world got to see everything that we had been building up on a smaller level. So my favorite, it's hard for me to say a particular song, because that whole album was like my baby. It was like my first kid. Yeah. You know what I'm saying? So just also, I would say not even just a song, but just learning how to make songs. I learned that a lot more in that process, because before then I was just doing, you know, R&B remixes or freestyles or mixtape cuts. You know, mixtape cuts. I hadn't really had a structure of like when it's time to make an album, especially in that era too, you were making songs to connect to certain lanes and audiences, right? So that's what I learned in that time too. Was like, all right, we're not just going in here freestyling. We got to go in here and have like conceptual some kind of agenda, what you want to talk about, what this beat brings out of you, what this hook sets like the guideline for. And then, you know what I mean, I learned how to make songs, to be honest, in that first album. And you know, now I think a lot of artists have the advantage and the benefit of making like projects before their first album and being able to construct songs. Like, you know, their mixtapes were different. It wasn't just them freestyling. If you look at like how a Drake or Kendrick Lamar, their mixtapes, they were already grooming albums in their mixtapes. So that's why their mixtapes out. But in that time, mixtapes was still like a very underground. You rap over somebody else's beat. You flip couple bars around on somebody else's R&B song. So it was like those was like the steps to get to there. And then when I got to my first album, it was like, oh wow, I'm here, but now I got to go through the learning process of being here. You know what I'm saying? So that's what my first album, I think, connects to me more than just per song, was just actually every song, just going into making every song and making it work all together as an album.
That's dope. Fab, I just still need you to pick one.
One song.
I really want people back over to the
one
UK
song
to
that stands out is "Keeping It Gangsta" from that project.
Keeping It Gangsta. Tell me about that record. Why it's so important?
It was very important because one, at that time, that's what it was all about, keeping it gangsta, and two, the music of that song had such a sinister like vibe to it. You know what I'm saying? Where it wasn't like gangster, where it was only like street, but it just gave you a gangster feeling. Like it gave you that sinister feeling. And I remember we even did a remix with Jadakiss and Styles P, and you know, two guys that represented that gangster feel as well. Like their DNA, their form of their body. When they get together and go back and forth on a track, you know, they give you that energy. So you know, that was one of the songs that to me was like also an album cut to say, but it was like kind of like the real feeling of a meal. Like, you know what I'm saying? You know how you have like, mashed potatoes, but like that's what like Keeping It Gangsta served as. It was like one of those like deep, like solid cuts on the project, but it was just like an album cut. It wasn't a single or anything, but it was like the things that everybody listens to. That's the one of their faves on the joint.
Fabs living a vida loca, the only in the hood you could come see. For either Knox wanna see me and my team in a chair. They heard about the kid with the high beams in his ear. DEA been looking for proof since 9-3. When I came through in the Benz with the roof behind me. Tell them Jake, don't want bulletproofs and find me. You need extinguishers to go in the booth behind me. Who the wanna beef?
In the studio with Fabolous, and we're talking about all things Ghetto Fabolous right about now. Keeping It Gangsta, iconic cut off that album. From the UK to New Jersey, we're here, man. Let's talk about just the vibe of New York City to hip hop, because this is my first time in New York, you know, fam. I've never been in New York, and it's crazy because, you know, after a year and a bit of having like the biggest rap show in Europe, I said, how can I not go to like the mecca of hip hop?
Yeah, you definitely had to make this trip, bro.
I swear I did, and I'm so gassed. I'm even upset that I'm leaving soon, but it's cool.
Yeah.
Forget about that. Like,
but you sparked the energy, so I'm sure you'll be back.
Hopefully,
you got to come back and do like a hip hop tour and see all of the hip hop monuments and places and Biggie's block and Nas's projects and you know Jay-Z's across the street from the Barclays. You got to hit all of these like New York.
Now you're gonna make me miss this flight.
Man.
You're gonna make me miss this flight, fam, man. Because I might just stay with you. There's so much epic like places out here that is again. The cultural relevance to hip hop is amazing out here, but like, what makes New York so different, like to other states in the US in terms of like for hip hop? Because you know Atlanta, they've got a rich history. You know, you go Texas, they got a rich history. Florida got a rich history, but there's something different in the air about New York City.
Well, one, it was originated here. I think the whole culture and not just hip hop alone, but just like, you know, everything that went along with hip hop, you know what I'm saying? From graffiti to breakdancing to, you know, the shows, the parties, all of it kind of originated here, and then it brought into the world, you know what I'm saying? But I think the energy here also is a gumbo of ethnicity. So that makes like, you know, you get different flavors, and I think, you know, a lot of, you know, whether it's Black American, whether it's Caribbean, whether it's Asian, whether it's any ethnicity you think of is here.
Yeah, mountain part of culture.
So it comes together and it breeds different energies. It brings different styles. It brings different heritages, and from people who have their own way they do things in their country, but they bring it here. You know what I'm saying? Your parents might instill something in you. So when you start rapping, you have that energy too. They also play their music, their style. So when you come into making music for hip hop, you're bringing a little taste of the music that you grew up on or your parents played for you. So I think all of that mixes here in New York. I think New York is also a place that is always thrived from the hip hop culture as well.
For sure.
Every part of New York has almost like an iconic hip hop artist from each borough here. You know what I'm saying? So like you could go to Brooklyn and have Biggie and Jay-Z. You could go to Queens and have Nas. You can go to
Staten Island, Wu-Tang.
Right, Wu-Tang. It's also those things that help make the stamps there too. And I think last but not least, like, we make great music. We make great hip hop. So
straight
you know
up.
what I mean? And I think that's why we are who we are.
For sure. We're also celebrating 40 years of Def Jam on Radio 1's rap show. Of course, Def Jam's iconic label.
Iconic New York. That's another thing too. We had some record labels that were born and bred here in New York too. So Def Jam being one of them.
Exactly. And you've had quite a few iconic albums on Def Jam. Loso's Way came out on Def Jam. From Nothing to Something came out on Def Jam, right?
Yep.
So
that was my first album on Def Jam, Nothing to Something.
So iconic, fabulous records have come out on the label. What does Def Jam Recordings mean to hip hop for you?
It always was an iconic label to me. Just from, like I said, one of my favorite artists growing up was LL Cool J. and I saw his history there. I saw him a part of an iconic hip hop movie that incorporated Def Jam. So Def Jam has always had a real connection to iconic hip hop artists. You know what I'm saying? Even if they stayed there for their whole career or was
passed
there,
through.
it's like you had to come through Def Jam. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So it's always been that, the logo has always been it's another iconic symbol that you recognize when you see it. So Def Jam has always been up there for me. Like, you know what I mean? As far as like being a hip hop staple, you know what I'm saying, when it comes to being a label, a record label.
And I know you probably can't pick your favorite release on the Def Jam, but if we could use this opportunity to play a record,
Say a couple.
that you released from
You're
Def
gonna
Jam.
have to play a couple.
Okay, cool. Daisy, we can play more than one, innit? Of course we can.
We can go Jay-Z. Man, Jay-Z's had some incredible Def Jam albums. But I'm gonna go back to Money Cash Hoes
Okay.
with DMX, another iconic Def Jam artist.
Come on. Yo, J-A-Y, I flow sick. Oh, y'all haters blow. I spit the game, those bricks. Money, cash, chicks. Sex, murder, and mayhem. Romance for the street. Only wife of mine. It's a life of crime and sense. Life's a mini skirts and big chests. How can I not flirt with them?
I'm gonna go Young Jeezy,
Of course, you gotta play something with G.
Thug Motivation joint. We could play a Jeezy one, and let's go to my guy LL, man.
Of course.
Let's-
What LL song you want?
Let's go lounging.
Yeah, Lounging's a good one.
I was gonna
LL
say
Lounging.
Who Do You Love? I mean the lounging, or I was gonna say the Hate Lover joint with Boys II Men too.
Yo,
That was a classic too.
It's a Queens thing, baby.
I wanna dance with you.
Track masters, rock on.
We be doing it real.
Baby, yes, rock on. The remix. How you doing, miss? My name is L, I'm from Queens. I heard about your man, he like the late shoe with cream. Dolce Gabbana Moschino with Donna jeans, but he slipped up and threw his rock to a fiend. He be playing like a willy cause he dressed shit up.
Fam, so when I came into the studio, I noticed something. I don't know if you lot forgot to hide this before I got here, but I noticed that there was a track listing, and it was on a board. It's not there no more. They hid it. They noticed I saw it. It's looking like new music over there, Fab.
New
Is
music.
there something you want to tell us?
New music is on the way.
But that's looking like a track listing, so
Yeah.
an album.
Yeah, it's definitely a project, man. I've been working and scattering different things here, features, freestyles, but people have definitely voiced and said that they want an album, and I'm working towards the project now instead of like dropping little things here and there. Like, that can work for a little while, but like people are kind of fed up. So I'm trying to like finish up this project and get it out there, because I always thought that, I come from a mixtape era and culture that, bodies of work and mixtapes have always been
important.
kind of like my single. Instead
sure.
of me dropping a song,
Yeah.
people like to get the whole body of work, and then I can work it song by song after.
agree.
But I gotta drop the project. So
And that's looking at the top of 2025.
yes, sir.
We got a title.
But we're gonna start like rolling,
All of that.
so that by the
Yeah.
time we get to 2025,
Yeah.
we here. The project is gonna be called The Reload.
Okay, the reload.
Yes, sir.
Okay, what
So-
inspired the title?
Just I feel like we all either need a reload or we go through one through life. I feel like when you go through different things in life, you may need a reload. I feel like that's what it was inspired from me, just going through different things in my life in the last couple years where I needed to reload the situation around me just because of what I was going through. So I speak on that a little bit in the project, but I also speak on those things that were happening that, caused me to feel like, and a reload is not in a bad way. It's just, you could reload anything. Like, you know what I'm
You
saying?
can
You could just
reload
reset
the
something
track,
and just
start again, refresh.
Yeah, so it's more like all of those reset, refresh,
reinventing. Yeah.
readapt, whatever you need to do. And that's kind of what the reload is for me. Like, it's just me getting back to everything.
Now, Fab, you've inspired a lot of come-ups in hip-hop, even like the new subgenres of hip-hop, whether it be drill, alternative, whatever. Yeah, you've been an inspiration to a lot of the like younger cats coming up. Can I just ask you, like, what rappers do you listen to of, like, not necessarily just the new generation, but just like, it could be anyone that you just rock with, that inspire you?
I'm a mood vibe kind of music listener, so it could go anywhere from drill to R&B. You know what I'm saying? If I'm in an R&B mood, I'll put on some classic 90s or classic 2000s R&B, because I like that's a time not only that I was involved, but also inspired what I was doing as well. So I still listen to that in that same sense, just for that. And it's also different from what you typically hear today. Even on the R&B side, R&B from the 90s and 2000s is different from now. So but I will tap into what's going on today. I also always listen to new releases just to get a whiff of what's going on out there. Sometimes I'm against that mood. I'm not listening to anybody but my stuff sometimes, or I'm listening to my new stuff that I'm working on just to get a feel.
You gotta be a little bit selfish, to get better.
You know what I mean?
Like, I'm saying, not that
play
you
my
need
shit.
to.
Yeah.
Like, but I can see you. To be fair, if I had your hard drive, I'd be listening to Fab stuff all day as well, man.
Yeah. But even there, you know what I mean? Sometimes you might get tired or you don't want to get tired of your stuff. So that's why I drift off to it sometimes too, and like, all right, I'm not gonna listen to my stuff for a week just so that I could come back to it with fresh ears.
Fresh ears, yeah.
But yeah, I like everything, bro. I like, you know, I ain't gonna lie, I do listen to a lot of older like hip hop from when I think some of our best times is the music that we in our teenage years were like creating our memories of life, the music that was going to that, the music that was a soundtrack to that.
Got you.
And so I like to still go back to that music as well, because it just makes you go down memory lane. It makes you appreciate those times, appreciate that music. So I like to tap in there as well too. That's one of my favorite like moods to get in when I want to like listen to like, you know, the hip hop when I was just discovering, like how you said, when you discovered the music and you could still rap it word for word and all that. Like I like that vibe.
All right, so this is going to be challenging. We got one last record that we got to play for In the Studio with Fabolous. Now, this is going to be probably the hardest record to choose because essentially it's the GOAT record. So, like, let's say someone's listening to the radio right now and they just switched on the radio and they're hearing Kenny Allstar and Fab in the studio, and they don't listen to hip hop. They might not even like rap music. I know
what song it is.
It's hard to fathom, but let's say
they
hate the music we love.
I gotta play So Into You. If that's the
he did it. Hey Fab, this is how I know you're a genius. You didn't even let me finish. It's like you already knew.
I know where you're going. That's why I said I know which record for that. We gotta go So Into You because it's gonna give them vibe.
Yeah.
It's gonna give them melody.
Yeah.
It's gonna. But I'm still rapping on their joint. You know what I'm saying? So you're gonna catch every feeling that I need you to catch. That if you never heard Fab before.
Okay.
Like, I need you to be like, oh, okay, he can rap. But then he got, you know, the hook is good. I like the beat. I like the vibe. Even if I just think it's the perfect record if I want to introduce you to my music.
I'm not mad at it. Fabolous, So Into You. Let's get that on a Radio 1's rap show.
Can't really explain it. I'm so into you now. I wanna be more than a friend of you now. When they ask, I mention my baby girl in the interviews now. And I don't bring the problems from the 90s and the 2000s. There's no reason to have a friend or two now. Cause the kid's ready to tell you how he feel in a few vows. Maybe I speak in general now. But girl, I'ma do whatever just to keep a grin on you now. Where I go, they wear bikinis in the winter too now. What you think about 10 lines on the skin of you now. Why wouldn't I wanna spend a few thou? On Fifth Ave shopping spree.
What a classic. Fabulous. So Into You on Radio 1's Rap Show in the studio in New Jersey. Fab, thank you for taking out your time, bro. Like, I know you're very busy. The schedule's so busy.
Man, we make time for what we and when I heard that y'all guys were coming over, I had said, yo, y'all gotta have them pull up and come rock with me. So.
Nah, means a lot, man. The hospitality's been amazing, and next time, bro, you might have to give me a hip hop tour of New York for sure.
When y'all come back, we definitely let's go hit a couple. I didn't know, and this is another bad thing about New Yorkers too, because we have those kind of like landmarks and monuments, and we don't take advantage of them. Like I realized that one time when, like, you know how like people come for Broadway plays. We live here and don't go to the plays. So like I started going to the plays just because people were asking me, have you ever seen this play? I'm like, nah, we don't do that here. We don't go to our own thing. So like even on the hip hop side, I had a friend who came and they went to like Nas's projects. They went to Queens. I want to see Queensbridge. I'm like, Queensbridge is not like it's not
the place.
Yeah, it's not nothing to glorify. But she wanted to see it for, listening to hip hop and, never got to, you hear it and you almost feel like you know the place from just hearing it and see it in videos. And so she went there. She went to the block that Biggie grew up on. She went to all of these places. She had like a list of like New York places. And I was like, wow, that's dope. Like, like I would love to even do that with somebody and like even give my perspective on.
That's the way I was when I think I was at Bushwick yesterday. I was like, wow, this is Bushwick. Then I'm going past Brownsville, and I'm like, this is wild. It's like I wanted to be there, but then one of my boys, I was like, yo, you don't want to be there for too long. Like, what I'm saying? You might want to, but
go see your shit and then keep it moving. Brooklyn is still Brooklyn.
Exactly, I had to keep it moving quick. Let's put it that way. Fab, thank you so much for spending time.
Thank you, man.
On Radio 1's Rap Show. Really appreciate you. Kenny Allstar alongside Fabulous in the studio. Until next time, peace and love.